A father and son vanished in the Sierra Nevada. No trace. No witnesses. Just a truck abandoned on a forest road. Keys still in the ignition. Doors locked from the inside. For 17 years, the case stayed frozen in silence until a drone pilot, searching for wildfire footage, flew over a stretch of untouched mountain and captured something no one was ever meant to see. A shape half buried in snow, and beside it, something that looked like a man reaching out. What the drone revealed forced investigators to reopen a file that everyone had already given up on. Welcome to Uncommon Stories. If this story stays with you, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from and when the truth found you. Now let's begin. Their names were Michael Turner and his 15-year-old son Jacob. Locals knew them well. Michael was a quiet mechanic from Reno who loved two things more than anything, his boy and the mountains. Every summer, they hiked the Sierra together. Same route, same photographs at the same overlook. It was their ritual, 1 week away from everything. The last photo they ever took showed them smiling at the trailhead, sunlight cutting through tall pines. Hours later, they were gone. When they didn't return by Sunday, Michael's wife reported them missing. Rescue teams searched for 10 days. Helicopters, dogs, volunteers. They found tracks leading up a ridge and stopping suddenly, as if both had vanished into thin air. No slide, no fall, no blood, just the wind. After that, the file was labeled Unresolved Disappearance. Another mystery swallowed by the Sierra. But people near the range whisper about the stretch of forest they camped in, a place old maps called Black Pine Pass. Hikers said compasses spun there. Animals avoided it. And at night, the wind carried voices that didn't belong to any living thing. Years passed. The world moved on. Michael's wife sold their house, left the state, and refused interviews. Only one person never let it rest. Michael's brother, David Turner. Every year on the anniversary, he drove the old truck up the same road and left fresh flowers at the trailhead. He always said the same thing to the trees. "I'll find you." He didn't know that 17 years later, it wouldn't be him who found anything. It would be a stranger with a drone and an hour to kill before sunset. The pilot's name was Evan Cole. He wasn't looking for ghosts. He was testing a new camera for wildfire mapping, scanning ridge lines between snowfields. At 6:42 p.m., his drone caught a flicker, something glinting beneath the snow near Black Pine Pass. At first, he thought it was metal. Then he zoomed in. Two shapes, parallel, half buried. He froze the frame and realized what he was seeing wasn't debris. It was fabric, torn, faded blue, the color of an old hiking jacket. And beside it, a pattern pressed into the snow. 5 shallow marks, like a hand trying to claw its way up. Evans saved the footage and reported it to the sheriff's office. By morning, investigators had reopened the Turner file. The coordinates matched the same region where search teams had lost their signal 17 years earlier. But when they reached the ridge, the snow had already shifted. The shapes were gone. Only a hollow impression remained, like something had recently been pulled free from the ice. Detectives reviewed the drone footage frame by frame. In the final second before the image cut off, a small flare of light appeared in the corner. Not sunlight, not lens glare. A reflection, pulsing once, twice, like a signal. The light came from deeper inside the forest, beyond where any trail existed. They marked the spot for investigation. Meanwhile, the story went viral. Drone solved 17-year-old mystery. Headlines read. But David Turner wasn't celebrating. He told reporters the ridge where the drone filmed wasn't part of his brother's usual route. "It's miles off trail," he said. Mike never went off trail. So if the camera really had captured them, why were they there? And who, or what, had moved the bodies before the team arrived? That night, Evan reviewed his footage again. This time, he boosted the audio. His drone had no microphone, but it had a gyroscopic sensor that picked up vibrations. He expected static. Instead, The readout produced a low, rhythmic pulse, almost like breathing. When he slowed the video, the reflection in the corner moved, not random, not flicker, a pattern of 3 flashes, pause, 3 more, a code, old-fashioned Morse. He looked it up. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. Someone or something out there was signaling for help. The sheriff ordered a second search team to return at dawn. But overnight, a blizzard swept across the range, burying the entire site. By morning, every trace was gone again. Only the story remained. A father and son who vanished without reason. A drone that saw something impossible. And a signal pulsing from a forest no one had entered in decades. And somewhere beneath all that snow, something waited for the wind to change. The snow stopped 2 days later. When the clouds finally cleared, a search team made their way back up to Black Pine Pass. 5 officers, 2 forensic experts, and a volunteer, David Turner. He'd begged the sheriff to let him come. He said he needed to see it for himself. The air was razor cold, thinner with every step. Pines leaned over the trail like silent witnesses. It felt less like a rescue mission and more like a walk into a memory that didn't want to be remembered. At the top of the ridge, the wind had carved new shapes into the snow. What had been footprints the week before were now shallow pits. The team fanned out, marking coordinates. Metal detectors, thermal cameras. Nothing. Then one of the officers called out. He'd found something. A thread of blue fabric caught on a branch. It was brittle with age, but the color matched the jacket Michael Turner had worn the day he vanished. David Turner took the fabric in his gloved hand and just stared at it. For a moment, he didn't say a word. Then he whispered, "It's his." The forensic techs bagged it carefully, but David kept looking past them, down the slope toward the tree line, where the forest looked darker than it should have. The search continued. A mile down from the ridge, the team's thermal camera picked up something strange. A warm patch on the snow. At first, they thought it was an animal burrow, but when they started to dig, the snow gave way too easily, as if it had already been disturbed. Underneath, they found wood, rotten, splintered, a plank, then another. It wasn't a burrow. It was the roof of an old cabin. No one knew a cabin existed that far out. It wasn't on any map. The roof had partially collapsed, but through the opening they could see furniture, a lantern, and what looked like the outline of stairs leading down. The sheriff ordered them to hold position until the state investigators arrived. But David didn't wait. He climbed down into the opening before anyone could stop him. Inside, the air was heavy, dry, smelling of dust and something faintly metallic. The floorboards creaked under his boots. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like threads of snow. On the table sat an old notebook, the cover warped by moisture. He brushed off the dust. The first page was dated June 11th, 2006, the exact day Michael and Jacob went missing. The handwriting was Michael's. David's hands shook as he read the first line. "We found shelter. Storm came early. Jacob's ankle twisted. We'll stay here tonight." He turned the page. The wind sounds strange. Not like wind. Something keeps tapping on the wall. Then another. Jacob says he saw light outside last night. Not lightning. Like someone walking with a lantern. The entry stopped after that. No final message. No goodbye. Just blank pages. David called up to the others. But before he could climb out, he heard it. A soft creak from below. He froze. The noise came again. Slow, measured, like footsteps on wood. He aimed his flashlight at the floor. A small trapdoor lay half buried beneath a rug. He knelt down, pulled it open. A set of stairs led into darkness. By the time the others realized he was gone, David was already below ground. He followed the steps down into a narrow space, barely wide enough to stand in. His flashlight beam caught the edges of wooden crates, metal tools, and what looked like preserved food jars covered in frost. It was an old storage cellar, but at the far end, something glinted, a metal shape half buried in the wall. He stepped closer and saw what it was. A camera, still mounted on a tripod. The label read Panasonic, 2006. Its battery was long dead, but inside, the tape was intact. David carried it up to the surface. When the investigators arrived hours later, they sealed the tape and logged it as evidence. But before handing it over, David looked through the viewfinder. A single frozen image filled the tiny screen. Two silhouettes sitting at a table in the same cabin, faces hidden in shadow. And on the wall behind them, carved deep into the wood, was a message. Stay inside when the wind calls. Back at the sheriff's office, they transferred the tape to digital. The footage was shaky, grainy, typical home video quality. Michael's voice filled the speakers. Day 2. The storm's still here. If someone finds us, tell them we tried. He turned the camera toward his son. Jacob waved awkwardly, smiling. Behind him, the lantern flickered. Then Michael said something barely audible. Did you hear that? The camera shifted toward the window. Outside, faintly, something was moving between the trees. A shape, tall, slow, and then the recording ended. Investigators replayed that final second again and again, frame by frame. The shape wasn't human. Its outline was crooked, its movement wrong, like it was sliding instead of walking. But the most unsettling part wasn't what they saw. It was what they heard. Right before the tape cut out, a voice whispered, low and distorted, "Stay." The sheriff closed the file temporarily, calling it inconclusive. But David knew better. He'd seen the handwriting. He'd heard his brother's voice. Something out there had called to them, and they had listened, and whatever it was, it hadn't left the mountains. That night, David packed his truck with supplies, a camera, a flashlight, and Michael's old notebook. He told no one where he was going, but the next morning, a ranger found tire tracks leading off the main road, ending at the same trailhead where the Turners had vanished 17 years ago. David had followed the wind, and this time it was calling his name. The ranger found his truck at dawn, empty, doors locked, keys still in the ignition, exactly the same way Michael's had been found 17 years earlier. For the sheriff, it was déjà vu, another Turner gone without a trace. But for those who had lived here long enough, it felt like something repeating itself. A pattern, a ritual. David Turner had walked into Black Pine Pass alone, and this time no one was coming after him. The Bureau closed the trail again. Snowfall made the road impassable, and for a while, the story disappeared from headlines, like the mountains had swallowed it whole. But the notebook he left behind, the one recovered from his truck, held clues no one could ignore. The first page contained a single line, written in pencil. I heard him last night. He said my name. No context, no explanation. Just that. Beneath it, pressed into the paper, a faint indentation of a hand, as if he'd written it in the dark, with something gripping his wrist. Weeks passed before the snow melted enough for anyone to reach the ridge again. When they did, they found new footprints, fresh ones, leading from the trailhead down to the old cabin site. Except this time, the cabin was gone. Not collapsed, not burned, gone. The hole where it once stood had filled itself with snow and stone, smooth as if nothing had ever been there. Investigators found one thing left behind, half buried near a stump, a camera. It wasn't the Panasonic from before. It was modern, David's. The last file was dated 3 nights after he vanished. They played it in silence. The screen flickered. A beam of light from his flashlight cut through the dark forest. His breathing was heavy, labored. He whispered, "Something's here." The lens turned toward the trees. For a moment, nothing. Then, between the trunks, A figure, tall, thin, unmoving, not watching him, facing the same direction he was, like it was waiting for something ahead. David whispered, "Michael?" No response. The light swayed, and the figure stepped forward, its face pale, empty, features blurred by frost. Then the screen went black. The sheriff shut the laptop. Nobody spoke for a long time. When they replayed the audio and enhanced it, they caught a faint whisper before the footage cut off. A second voice, closer to the camera than David's own. It said, "He found the door." A week later, seismic monitors across the Sierra Nevada recorded a tremor. Just one. No quake, no aftershocks. A pulse, lasting 3 seconds. The epicenter was Black Pine Pass. By summer, hikers began reporting strange things near the ridge. Lantern lights moving through the trees. Faint music when the wind shifted. One group claimed they saw someone standing at the overlook, waving toward the forest, then vanishing the moment they called out. When rangers checked, they found footprints in the dirt, leading straight to the edge of a cliff. In August, a pair of campers stumbled on something frozen in the ground. A slab of wood, carved words, faded but still visible. "Stay inside when the wind calls." The same phrase from Michael's cabin video, except this time, the letters were fresh. That discovery reignited the case. National networks ran the story again. The drone footage resurfaced. And once more, the mountains drew attention they didn't want. Among the reporters who arrived was Nora Hill, a freelance documentarian who specialized in missing persons cases. She'd followed the Turner story for years, and when she heard that the brother had gone missing in the exact same place, she called it too perfect to be coincidence. Nora convinced the sheriff to let her film near the ridge. She wasn't allowed to cross the line into Black Pine Pass, but she didn't need to. She brought a drone, the same model Evan Cole had used 17 years earlier. On the second day of filming, her drone lost signal for exactly 11 seconds. When the feed returned, the camera had drifted, no longer facing the forest, but the valley below, and there between 2 trees, something moved. At first it looked like a tarp caught in the branches. Then it straightened, turned, and she saw a face. Pale, unmoving, frozen mid-breath. It was David Turner, standing half buried in snow, eyes open, hands pressed flat against a tree trunk. The footage ended there. When rangers returned to check the coordinates, they found nothing. No tracks, no body, no sign of disturbance. But the bark of that tree was scorched black, as if lightning had struck it from inside. That night, Nora watched the footage frame by frame. In the instant before the drone cut out, a faint reflection flashed across a lens, a pattern of light in Morse code. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, SOS. Again, 17 years later, the same signal. Someone or something was still asking for help. And from that moment on, Nora Hill decided she was going in. She didn't care about the warnings, the closed trails, the stories whispered by locals. She just wanted to know what had taken 3 generations of the Turner family and why it always called them back. Her first words in the camera log that night were quiet, calm, deliberate. "If you find this footage, don't look for me. Just listen. You'll hear it too. The wind isn't wind. It's a voice, and it knows your name." The morning Nora entered the pass, the air felt thinner. Not colder, emptier, like sound itself had been scraped away. She filmed everything. Boots crunching snow, the slow rise of sunlight cutting through pine, her breath visible, rhythmic. Behind her, the trail markers ended. Ahead, nothing but white and silence. Locals said no compass works there. She checked hers anyway. The needle spun twice, then froze, pointing downhill toward a valley she didn't remember on any map. She started walking, 3 hours later, she found it. A single wooden post, half buried, carved into its surface. Turned back. Fresh carving. Too clean to be 17 years old. Nora ran her fingers over the letters. The wood was warm. She kept filming, talking quietly into the mic. If you can hear this, I'm about 5 miles past the ridge. There's no sound. Even my footsteps feel wrong, like I'm walking inside a closed room. She stopped, somewhere in the distance. A single knock echoed, like wood against wood. Once. Pause. Once more. The same pattern from Michael's notebook entries. By noon, fog rolled in, low and gray, turning the forest into a maze. That's when she saw it, a shape between trees. Tall, motionless. She zoomed her camera. For a second it looked like a man. Then her focus sharpened, and she realized it wasn't standing on the ground. It was in the ground, half buried, chest upward, arms spread, frozen in mid-climb, as though it tried to rise and the earth had swallowed it back. Nora whispered, "Oh my God!" Her lens trembled. The face was eroded but familiar, the same features from David's driver's license photo. She lowered the camera, staring through tears. The mouth was open, and inside it something glowed faintly blue, a small metallic shard. She reached forward with gloved hands, hesitating, then pulled it free. It wasn't metal. It was glass, a cracked camera lens, same model as David's drone. On the inner rim, etched in microprint, the serial number matched his lost equipment. The wind rose suddenly, howling through the canyon like a scream stretched thin. Her recorder spiked, then cut to static. Through the noise came a whisper, "Stay inside when the wind calls." The same warning. Again, she ran. Branches whipped her face. Snow swallowed her boots. The fog twisted around her like a living thing. Then she stopped, frozen. Ahead, a cabin stood, whole, intact, exactly as Michael had described it in his journal. Impossible. She stepped closer. The door hung open, swaying with the wind. Inside, everything was preserved. Table, lantern, notebook, dust-covered nothing. Even the coffee mugs were upright, half full, liquid frozen solid inside. It was as if time had paused mid-breath. She whispered, "Michael?" Somewhere beneath the floor, something moved. A dull thud, then another. She knelt, brushing aside the old rug. The same trapdoor David had opened years ago waited beneath. She switched the camera to night mode and started down. Each step groaned. The temperature dropped fast. The basement was smaller than she expected. Stone walls, dirt floor, and in the far corner, a door made of iron bars. Behind it, darkness. Her flashlight caught a flicker of movement, a reflection of eyes. Not one pair, several. They blinked all at once. Then a voice came through, faint, layered, as if 100 whispers were speaking together. "You heard the wind. You came anyway." Nora staggered back. Her flashlight slipped, rolling across the floor. For a moment the light illuminated the wall, covered in drawings, circles, spirals, dates. Each spiral centered around one phrase. "He listens." The door rattled. Something pushed from the other side. She turned and bolted up the stairs, breathing raggedly, snowlight pouring through the open door above. As she reached the surface, a blast of wind slammed the door shut behind her. Her camera toppled, but kept recording, pointed toward the trees. For a single second, the fog parted. A silhouette stood at the tree line. It wasn't David. It wasn't Michael. It was a child, a boy about 15, smiling. Then he stepped backward into the fog and vanished. Nora's footage ended there. When rescue crews recovered her camera 3 days later, they found it resting on the cabin's doorstep. No footprints nearby. No Nora, but etched into the wood of the doorframe, a new message, The wind remembers. The Bureau sealed the site again. The footage was classified, but a copy leaked. Frame-by-frame analysts found that, in the final seconds before blackout, the fog behind the boys shifted, forming shapes, outlines, faces. 12 at least. Men, women, children, each one frozen mid-whisper. And standing at the center, a tall figure with its hand raised, beckoning toward the camera. Locals stopped going near the ridge after that. Even rangers refused assignments there. But the hum never stopped. Every night, same hour, same direction. A deep vibration rolling down the valley like distant thunder. And those who dared to listen swore they could make out words hidden inside the wind. A single name, repeated over and over. Nora. After Nora's footage leaked, the mountains fell quiet again. Quiet, but not calm. Something about her last transmission, the layered whispers, the shifting fog, caught the attention of people far above the local sheriff's reach. Within a week, the Bureau arrived, unmarked trucks, black tents, satellite uplinks humming through the night. They didn't call it an investigation. They called it a containment assessment. The lead analyst was Dr. Henry Vallon, a geophysicist who'd spent years tracking acoustic anomalies across the western states. He'd read every file on the Turner case. He'd studied every drone frame. When he heard the audio Nora captured, he said only one thing. That's not wind. It's resonance. A frequency too low for the human ear, shaping itself into words. The Bureau built a base near the old trailhead. They installed ground sensors, thermal imaging, and an array of underground microphones. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then, on the 4th night, the monitors came alive. The sound returned. A low, rhythmic pulse. 4 beats. Then silence. For beats again. It wasn't random. Vallon slowed the playback, mapped it onto Morse intervals. It spelled a single phrase. Open. The next morning, the ridge cracked. Not an earthquake. A controlled shift, like the mountain itself had exhaled. A fissure split the snowfield behind Black Pine Pass, revealing a vertical shaft leading straight down. Warm air rose from below. Teams in hazmat suits lowered sensors first. No toxic gases. No radiation. Just temperature, 20 degrees warmer than the surface. Then they sent a camera. The feed showed narrow tunnels carved through stone, walls smooth as glass, spiraling downward, and on every surface. The same circular symbols Nora filmed on the cabin wall. Spirals, dates, the words he listens. Dr. Vallon watched in silence as the camera descended. At 200 feet, the lens picked up something unexpected. Wood, old, splintered beams, the remnants of a staircase, and at the base of it, a door made of iron bars. The same one Nora described in her last log, except this time, it was open. Vallon ordered the camera to move closer. The feed shook, static building across the monitor. Then, for less than a second, a face appeared in the dark, pale, motionless, eyes open. The feed cut. All screens went black. When signal returned, the camera was gone. Only the tunnel remained, empty. But on every audio channel, a new sound emerged. Voices, thousands of them layered together, whispering the same thing over and over. He's awake. That night, Vallon recorded his own notes. We're dealing with something older than language. The sound isn't echoing through the cave. The cave is producing it, like a living resonator. He paused, listened again to the background hum. It's responding to us. On day 6, the Bureau decided to seal the fissure. They filled the opening with reinforced concrete, covered it with snow, and restricted all access within a 5-mile radius. The case was labeled environmental hazard. All files locked. But Vallon didn't stop. Late one night, he stayed alone at the monitoring tent. The others had gone to sleep. The hum returned, louder this time. He turned up the gain on the nearest mic. Beneath the frequency, a pattern formed, a familiar rhythm. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS, he whispered to the empty room. Who are you? The speakers hissed back. You know. At dawn, Valen was gone. His bunk empty. His parka missing. Security footage showed him walking toward the ridge. Headphones on, recorder in hand. He never looked back. 2 days later, the monitoring team picked up a final transmission from his recorder, 16 seconds long. A shaky breath, footsteps crunching snow. Then his voice quiet, trembling. I see them. They're standing around the cabin. All of them. Michael, Jacob, David, and someone else. They're waiting. A pause. It's beautiful. Then static. The Bureau pulled out the next morning. Every tent, every cable, gone by noon. The ridge returned to silence. Only the snow remained, smooth, untouched. Locals say the wind there changed after that. Not colder, just deeper, like it carried a second voice beneath its breath. Months later, a park ranger on patrol spotted something unusual at the trailhead. A new sign nailed to a tree, unmarked, hand-carved. Don't listen too long. He took a photo, sent it to headquarters. When they returned to remove it, the sign was gone. Only the nails remained, bent inward, as though the wood had swallowed them whole. By autumn, the forest had grown unnaturally thick. Branches crossed like ribs over the old trail, light never touching the ground. And at night, people in nearby towns began hearing something strange through open windows. A low vibration, rolling through the valley like a breath between worlds. Those who stayed awake long enough claimed they could make out a melody hidden inside it. A man's voice, faint, singing the same line again and again. He listens. He remembers. Winter passed. The Bureau pulled out. The case went cold. And for a while, the Sierra Nevada slept. Or so it seemed. But underneath the ice, something was moving. Locals said the wind had changed again. Now it came in waves, a rise, a pause, a pulse, like breathing. In April, a new team arrived. Not government, private, independent. They called themselves the Continental Research Group. But the locals just called them the Ghost Chasers. 8 people in total. Scientists, engineers, 1 journalist. Their lead investigator was Dr. Lena Rowe, a seismologist who'd spent years studying unexplained tremors near fault lines. When she reviewed the files from Valen's project, she said one line that chilled everyone in the room. The mountain didn't echo the hum. It generated it. Lena's plan was simple. Map what lay beneath the sealed fissure. She and her team set up scanners, ground-penetrating radar, and magnetic resonance tools. Within hours, their readings lit up. A hollow space beneath the ridge, a perfect spiral, descending more than 1,000 feet. In the very center of it, a heat signature, faint but steady, alive. That night, Lena began to hear something through her instruments. Not voices, not yet, just a sound, a deep vibration, low enough to feel in her chest. She recorded it, then ran a frequency analysis. The waveform formed a pattern, a series of rising peaks, equidistant. She translated the spacing into letters. It spelled Ro-E, her name. The next morning, she woke to find her tent door open, snow untouched, no prints, just a small object placed neatly beside her sleeping bag, a broken lens, glass cracked down the middle, the same kind used in early drone cameras. Someone or something had brought it back. Her assistant, Theo Grant, reviewed the base's night cameras. Nothing moved on screen, not a person, not an animal. But when he slowed the footage, every 17th frame flickered, and for 1 second, A face appeared near Lena's tent. Pale, faint, eyes wide open, then gone. Theo wanted to leave. He packed his bag, said he'd drive down before the storm hit. By noon, he was gone. By nightfall, his car was found half a mile down the road, engine still running, headlights pointing into the trees. The driver's seat was empty. Snow around it had melted into a perfect circle, 5 feet wide, edges smooth as glass. Lena didn't leave. She couldn't. Every piece of data she collected drew her deeper, deeper into the question she couldn't stop asking. What was buried here before the mountain? She began tracing geological records, old surveys, tribal histories. One record, from 1874, mentioned an earthquake near the same ridge. Witnesses said they heard singing from the ground before it hit. Another, dated 1919, described light rising from beneath the snow and shapes that walked inside it. The location, Black Pine Pass. Lena started piecing together a timeline. Every 17 years, something happened in the region. Disappearances, signals, storms that came out of nowhere. 17 years ago, Michael and Jacob Turner. 17 years before that, 3 miners vanished. 17 years before that, a settlement destroyed by fire. The pattern wasn't random. It was rhythmic, predictable, like the heartbeat of something sleeping beneath the ice. Day 5, the scanners picked up a new signal, movement beneath the sealed fissure. She called her team to the ridge. They set up thermal imaging. At 10:42 a.m., a faint red glow appeared below the surface, then split into two heat signatures, standing side by side, then 3, then 4, each one pulsing faintly, like breathing. The ground trembled, snow cracked, and slowly, the concrete plugs sealing the fissure began to sink. They backed away as the surface folded inward, revealing a hollow shaft. Warm air rose again. Lena leaned forward, listening. The hum was back, louder now, almost melodic. She heard words this time, not English, something older, deeper, a rhythm of syllables repeating like a chant. Then one line broke through, clear and human. He waits for the one who listens. Lena dropped the recorder. The words kept coming, louder, closer. Her team ran. Cameras fell. Monitors screamed with feedback. Then silence. When rescue arrived 3 days later, the base camp was deserted, tents flattened, equipment half buried. No sign of Lena or her team, but etched into the ice where the fissure had been, carved deep and wide enough to read from the air, was one word: open. Authorities sealed off the area again. No press releases, no reports. But before everything was covered, a pilot flying overhead captured one image. A spiral burned into snow, glowing faintly red. The exact same spiral that had appeared 17 years ago. In the Turner drone footage, the pattern was repeating. By the end of that week, the hum returned across the entire valley. Seismographs registered it. Dogs howled through the night. Even power lines buzzed with the same rhythm. For beats, then silence. For beats again. The code hadn't changed. It was still calling. And somewhere deep inside the Sierra Nevada, beneath miles of stone and ice, something answered. The frequency rose. The snow cracked again. And for the first time in 17 years, a faint blue light flickered from the canyon floor, pulsing in perfect sync with the hum. The hum never stopped. By midsummer it had spread beyond the ridge, down through valleys, across frozen lakes, into the metal of passing trains. Whole towns began to vibrate at night. Window panes rattled. Water in glasses quivered. And when people held their breath, they swore they could hear syllables forming inside the sound. A language no one remembered, but everyone somehow understood. It said only one thing: come back. Authorities denied everything. They called it atmospheric pressure, ground resonance, internet hysteria. But a few who had lost someone in the mountains heard something else. Familiar voices woven through the noise. Michael's wife said she heard Jacob calling her name in the static of her television. A miner's granddaughter claimed her grandfather whispered from the radio. Each voice ended the same way, with a breath. Then the words, "We're close." By late June, one of Lena Rowe's recording devices came online again. No one turned it on. No power. No signal. Yet data streamed from the mountains. Video, audio, coordinates. The first frame showed fog rolling through the old valley. The second, a figure walking toward the camera. It was Lena, eyes open, expression blank, her mouth moving in silence. Behind her, faint shapes followed. Michael, Jacob, David, Valen, Nora, every soul the mountain had taken. They walked as one, and in the static of the audio track, a single sentence formed. We opened it. That night, satellite imagery over the Sierra Nevada captured a heat bloom shaped like a spiral. Again, only larger, almost 10 miles across. It pulsed once every 17 seconds. Each pulse carried a sound too low to hear, but strong enough to register on oceanic seismographs. Half a world away, the Earth itself was repeating the frequency. Within days, electronics failed across 3 states. Compasses spun, power grids fluctuated, birds vanished from the sky. The Bureau issued evacuation orders, then went silent. No one went near the mountains after that. No one except Evan Cole, the drone pilot who had started it all. Evan had lived quietly for years. He told reporters he never flew again, never watched the footage. But when he heard about the signal returning, he said it felt like someone had whispered his name. He packed his gear, drove overnight, and stopped at the same overlook where his first drone had lifted 17 years earlier. The wind was warm, almost electric. Snow glittered even in darkness. He launched a new drone, sleek, high resolution, capable of thermal imaging down to the bedrock. It rose silently into the sky, then drifted over the valley. For 6 minutes, nothing, just clouds and broken trees. Then movement, a circle of light forming on the snow below, not reflected, projected. He adjusted altitude. The circle expanded, revealing something vast carved into the valley floor. Not natural, not geological. A structure, perfectly symmetrical. Rings of stone descending inward like an enormous ear pressed to the earth. At the center, a hole glowing blue. The drone sensor spiked. Magnetism off the scale. Radiation zero. Sound impossible to measure. The craft began to drift downward, drawn by a current Evan couldn't control. Through the feed, he saw shadows moving along the rings. Hundreds of them, walking clockwise, heads tilted toward the center, mouthing the same silent phrase. He whispered, "Michael?" The figures stopped. Every head turned toward the camera. The feed cut to white. When it returned, the drone was hovering inches above the spiral center. A bright fissure pulsed below. Each flash timed perfectly with the hum shaking the valley. Inside that light, Evan saw faces. Familiar, peaceful, endless. He whispered, "What do you want?" And from the speaker came a voice layered and calm. To be heard. The feed ended. Hours later, hikers miles away reported a column of light rising from the valley, spinning upward before vanishing into cloud. The next morning, Evan's truck was found at the overlook. Drone case open. Camera still recording. Its final image showed snow blowing over tire tracks, slowly erasing them, until there was nothing left. News outlets called it the Sierra Signal. Scientists called it a harmonic anomaly. But locals called it something older, a word from a region's first language, now nearly extinct. It meant the listener. That autumn, Geologists documented one final tremor, short, shallow, centered exactly beneath Black Pine Pass. It lasted 17 seconds. When it ended, the hum stopped. Completely. For months afterward, the silence felt heavier than the sound ever had. Rangers said birds avoided the valley entirely. Even the wind refused to cross it. But those who lived closest to the mountains reported one new phenomenon. Every morning at sunrise, a thin mist rose from the snow, twisting into human shapes before dissolving. Always two first, a man and a boy, holding hands. Behind them, the rest followed. Some nights, campers say they can still hear faint voices through the cold. A father teaching his son how to start a campfire. A woman laughing softly. A man whispering a name into the wind. And when you listen long enough, you realize the mountain isn't echoing. It's remembering. The Sierra Nevada sleeps again. But beneath its surface, the spiral waits. Not dead. Not gone. Just listening. 17 years. That's how long the silence lasted. No hum. No tremors. No missing persons. The Sierra Nevada slept. The valley froze. The story faded, first from headlines, then from memory. But memory isn't silence. It just waits for the right frequency. In the spring of the 17th year, a research satellite orbiting low over California picked up something unexpected. A pulse. One beat, then another, then a third. Exactly 17 seconds apart. It came from the same coordinates. Black Pine Pass. The same place where it all began. Analysts dismissed it as data interference. But one technician, Mira Vallon, daughter of the late Dr. Henry Vallon, recognized the waveform. It was identical to her father's final recording. The same hum, the same rhythm, the same plea beneath the static, a voice whispering, "He's awake." Mira had grown up hearing fragments of her father's old tapes. She'd memorized their tone, their pulse, their strange, unearthly cadence. When she heard the signal again, something inside her shifted. She packed her recorder, a satellite receiver, and a small drone of her own. Her destination, the Sierra Nevada. The roads were different now. Cleaner, wider, lined with warning signs that said, "Restricted zone, subterranean instability." But the forest hadn't changed. The pines still leaned the same way. The air still hummed softly when the wind fell quiet. She reached the ridge before dusk. There was no trailhead anymore, only smooth earth, and a faint spiral etched into the dirt, like something beneath the ground was tracing its memory. Mira set up camp at the overlook, the same one where Evan Cole had launched his drone all those years ago. She unfolded her receiver, scanned for signals. Nothing, just static. Then, faintly, a whisper through the white noise. Not words, just breathing. Slow, steady, almost human. She whispered, "Dad?" The static stuttered. Once, twice, then went silent. That night, the wind returned. Not cold, not warm, just heavy, like it carried weight instead of air. When it blew across the valley, Myra's compass began to spin. The drone on her table powered on by itself. Its camera light blinked 3 times, paused, blinked 3 more. SOS, the same signal. Again, she pressed record on her handheld mic. "It's happening again," she whispered. "The hum is back, but it's slower this time, like it's listening to me." Then she froze. From the trilene, a single light appeared. Soft, blue, not a flashlight, not a lantern. A glow, moving slowly through the trees, rising and falling like someone walking uphill. She turned the drone toward it. Through the feed, she saw the light stop at the valley floor. The snow began to melt around it in perfect circles. Steam rose, carrying faint whispers into the night. She zoomed in. The glow brightened. At its center stood a figure, motionless, head tilted upward, arms slightly outstretched. A man, Mira whispered, "Dad?" The figure raised its head. The camera caught his face. It was him, Dr. Henry Vallon, 17 years older, but alive. The drone feed distorted. Static blurred the frame. For a moment, his mouth moved. No sound. Then 3 words cut through the interference. "Don't wake it." The feed went black. Mira ran from her tent, down the ridge, through the trees. The air grew warmer with every step. The snow beneath her boots hissed into vapor. By the time she reached the valley, the light was gone. In its place, a hollow ring in the earth, a spiral carved deep into the ground. At the center lay a single object, a notebook. Its cover was torn, edges burned. Inside were notes, pages of handwriting she knew by heart. Her father's. The sound isn't calling us in. It's calling itself out. Every 17 years it remembers, like lungs filling with air again. Another line. It's not a creature. It's a recorder. And beneath it, one more sentence scratched into the paper, so hard it tore through. The mountain is alive, but it's not thinking. It's remembering what we said to it. Myra's hand shook. She looked up, and the valley glowed again. From beneath the spiral, light began to rise. Not blue this time, but white, like lightning without thunder. Voices filled the air, thousands of them, merging, echoing, speaking in harmony. They weren't words anymore. They were recordings, fragments of every voice that had ever entered the mountains. Michael laughing, Jacob asking for help, David whispering a prayer, Nora calling out, Vallon's quiet breath, and then hers. It's happening again. Her own voice, repeating from the wind, as if the mountain had already captured her words and was playing them back. The spiral widened. Ground cracked open. Heat rippled through the air. Mira stumbled backward, covering her ears. But the sound wasn't loud. It was perfect, a frequency that bypassed fear, cut through thought, and made her feel understood. It wasn't speaking. It was listening. And every word, every cry, every breath was part of what it was becoming. The next morning, hikers miles away saw a pillar of white light rising from the valley, curling into the clouds before fading. When authorities returned, they found no spiral, no tent, no equipment, just smooth earth, and the faint hum of wind blowing through unseen caverns. In the soil where Mira had stood, one phrase was burned into the ground. Heard. 17 years of silence had ended, and whatever the mountain had been, a machine, a memory, a god, it was now awake, and it had a voice. That was the last anyone heard of Mira Vallon. But sometimes, on certain nights, the sky above the Sierra flickers white for just a moment. When that happens, radios lose signal, phones glitch, and if you listen closely through the static, you'll hear a woman whisper, "We opened it." And behind her, 1,000 others, whispering the same line back. Heard. For months after Mira Vallon vanished, the mountain stayed silent. No hum, no light, no signal. Just quiet so deep it felt unnatural, like the world was holding its breath. But silence in the Sierra Nevada has never meant peace. It means the mountain is listening. In early winter, park rangers discovered a new fissure near the old ridge. Perfectly round, edges smooth, snow around it melted into concentric rings. When they dropped a flare, it fell for 7 full seconds before touching ground. The flame didn't go out. It just kept burning, casting shadows that twisted against the stone. And then they heard it, the hum again, soft, steady, rising from below like a heartbeat returning. The Bureau returned quietly. No press, no witnesses. Drones mapped the area from above. In every image, the same pattern appeared. Spirals etched across miles of terrain. connected like veins. At the center of all of them, a pulse of faint light. Someone asked if they should close it again. The director shook his head. "You can't seal memory," he said. "You can only add to it." That night, the temperature across the valley rose 10 degrees. Snow melted into rivers that ran uphill. Animals fled. And satellites over California recorded a sound strong enough to vibrate the ionosphere, a frequency precisely 17 hertz, the same number, always 17. In an underground lab outside Sacramento, scientists replayed the signal. They expected data noise. What they got was music, not melody, not human, but harmonic, tones layered in perfect mathematical intervals, mapped into spectrograms. The sound produced images, faces, landscapes, memories, every person ever lost in the mountains, woven into the song. Michael, Jacob, David, Nora, Valen, Lena, Mira, all of them, their voices were still there, preserved in vibration, endlessly repeating. One technician whispered, "It's not a haunting, it's an archive." The mountain wasn't killing, it was keeping. 17 nights later, the light returned, visible from 50 miles away, a pillar rising through storm clouds, reaching higher than thunder. Every radio went silent, every compass froze, and then the hum changed pitch, from low to high, like a breath turning into a word. It said one phrase, clear enough for microphones to capture. "We remember." Across the state, electrical grids flickered, streetlights dimmed. People stepped outside and looked east, toward the mountains glowing like the edge of another world. Some fell to their knees. Some wept. Some simply listened. Because inside that sound, every listener heard something personal. A mother's laugh, a child's voice, a name whispered long ago. The mountain had become a mirror of memory, playing back everything ever spoken within its reach. Then silence again. The light vanished. Power returned. And the Sierra Nevada exhaled one last time. When dawn came, the fissure was gone. Only a smooth plain of stone remained, flat as glass. No trail, no spiral, just a single mark at the center, carved deep into the rock. A handprint, perfectly preserved, too large to be human. Weeks later, hikers found an object buried near the old overlook. A drone, charred, its lens cracked. Inside its memory card, one final recording. The view pointed upward, toward a gray sky, snowflakes falling in slow motion. Then, faintly, a reflection of a woman leaning over the camera. "Mira." She smiled, spoke one line. It listened so we don't have to, and the screen faded to white. Today, the valley is closed. No maps mark its name. No one hikes there. Even the airspace above it is restricted. But pilots flying near the range report strange interference. Radios whispering fragments of conversation, in voices they recognize as their own. Sometimes, the whispers finish their sentences for them. Locals call it the listener's echo, a place that remembers everything that touches it, every sound, every life, every word ever spoken in fear or love. They say if you stand on the ridge at dusk, the wind doesn't blow past you. It moves through you, and for a heartbeat, you can feel the mountain hearing your thoughts. And if you're not careful, it keeps them. 17 years from now, someone else will return. Someone curious. Someone who can't resist the silence. They'll hear the hum, follow it into the snow, and become another voice in the endless archive beneath the earth. Because the Sierra Nevada isn't a mountain anymore. It's a memory, a living record, a listener waiting for new stories to keep. And maybe that's all any of us are, echoes waiting to be heard again.